Hello, welcome to Winter Rosa Apiaries.
Well, good evening. Well, thanks for coming out and joining and listening. And we'll welcome people as they come by. And if you have any questions as we go through, you're welcome just to raise your hand and ask me. Real informal here. But my name is Troy Winters. I've been keeping bees since I was in 6th grade. My youth pastor started keeping bees, and it piqued my interest. And said, do you want to try going through the hive? So I got a suit and tried it out, and was very fascinated by it. I remember going to Nature Center, and they had an observation hive, kind of like the one we've got back here, maybe a little bit bigger, had a couple frames of bees, and being able to see them behind glass, and just watch them work, and just became very fascinating. Kept bees until I got into college. Got out while I was busy in college, and then gotten back in. So I've probably about 12 years been keeping bees, and really enjoy keeping them. I've got approximately 20 hives right now in about 3 different locations. And my son Curtis just turned 12. He's been keeping bees with me for the last couple of years. 3 years. And what did you think about it first, Curtis?
I was scared because, they're bees, okay? Let's get that straight. They're bees. So then we started beekeeping, and it was like, it got to me. I'm like, they're not going to hurt you unless you start swinging at them, and then they're attacked with.
So we got more and more comfortable as time went on. And as we'll find, the honeybees are different than other bees, and they're not as aggressive as other bees, and there's some reasons for that, and we'll talk about that as well. Before we get into actually keeping bees, I want to tell you a little history about beekeeping. Beekeeping has been around for a long, long time. It's the way we keep bees has been maybe a little bit different through the years. We've learned things and how to manage them and help them with pests and parasites and things of that nature. But beekeeping, we have, through documents, see that it goes back into Egypt. They knew the importance of keeping bees. They knew the importance of moving hives to help with pollination. And we have that in records, written records. So that goes back to about 3000 BC, during the height of the Egyptian age. And we have records that they moved hives up and down the Nile River that help with pollination, because crops, of course, come in at different times of the year, as you know. So we only need the bees to be there when the bloom is out to help with pollination. So some fruits and vegetables come out early spring, some come out in the middle of summer, and some are in the fall. And so if they're producing those crops in different areas, they would move those hives into those different spots. Now during that time, they kept bees more in clay pots, and sometimes more of a kind of a canister type of clay pot type of idea. And they would move them, and it wasn't easy though to get inside the bees. It was just kind of just an entrance for the bees to come and go inside those pots. So if they wanted to take honey out of it, they basically destroyed the bees. They killed the bees to get the harvest of the honey, because they didn't want to get stung like crazy. So back then what they would do is they would put at the entrance of a colony, they would put like a flame, a fire. Sometimes they used let's see. Some type of incendiary heat device, basically to kill the bees. And once they were all dead, then they could crack the pot open and then collect the nectar, collect the honey that way. So it was more of the way they kept bees was kind of like an annual thing. They would kill them at the end of the season. They would have to repopulate in the spring, kind of idea. Now we're able to collect honey from the bees, not harm the bees at all, let them continue to live throughout the winter, build back up in the spring. And so we've learned how to work with them, that we're not killing them. So that's where it started, using kind of a clay pot structure. And then they went to this kind of a straw or vine type of, they call this a skep. This one here, and in some parts of the world today, they still use this. In Bulgaria, beekeepers still using this kind of a method where they're making a basket out of vines, and this is covered then with mud, sometimes mixed with straw and dung, as a kind of a water protectant, water repellent. And then they would have these placed under some type of lean-to type of structure, weather structure. They would have several under it, and just give this a little bit of a protection from the harsh weather. Some places you would find them, like if they had a wall maybe surrounding their house or their village or whatever. Sometimes they would have cutouts in the wall, and they would place these in that little kind of cave cutout into the wall and place these skeps. So the bees would enter into a hole in the side of the skep, and they would build their comb any way they like inside. And they would sit this on some type of rock platform, and you could move these. When it came time to harvest honey, you could smoke them, and you could take out part of the comb and let the bees move to other parts of the comb, maybe where the queen's laying eggs. Still very destructive though, and not a really great way to kind of inspect all of the bees and see what's going on. Anyway, that if they had any kind of disease or pesticides, not pesticides, disease or mites or whatnot, any way of helping them. Okay. So then came along here in the U.S., 1700s, the log was very popular, a hollowed out log. They call this a bee gum. The reason why they call this a bee gum is this came from, maybe not this one in particular, but at that time they came from a black gum tree. And the black gum tree had a tendency for the center of the tree to rot out first than the outside. So they would cut those trees, and they would hollow out, pull that rotted wood out of the center, and make a hollow place for the bees to be able to build their comb. And people would see that honeybees naturally find homes in hollowed out areas of trees. Even still today, that's where you'll see a lot of honeybees. You see trees that have there's some trees that naturally have different hollow cavities in the tree, or the tree's been struck by lightning and there's been splits or cracks. They'll find that and they'll build their home in that tree. And sometimes the tree falls, or somebody has to take it down, and we can cut that section out and extract that comb and put it into frames and put it into a more modern situation which I'll show you in a moment, that we're able to inspect and rearrange things easier. So this was another method still used in some parts of the in other countries. There are a few even within the U.S. Most states though have laws now. Kentucky is not one of them, but a lot of states have laws that you can only keep honeybees in removable framed hives for the reason of trying to keep the different diseases down, and diseases being inspected and medicated, and you can't do that with these type of things. But I think there's some people, I think Virginia is another place where it's not outlawed for log hives, and you can still find some people up in the hills that still have bees in log hives. And if we were to find naturally in the woods, let's say this tree fell over and there was bees in a section, we could cut this open and pull out the wax and rubber band them into frames. Or some people have set up a platform, put a hole here and put a box on top of it and let the bees naturally rise up into a more modern box and then get rid of this. Okay. Now into the modern age, this hive here was really invented around 1851 by Langstroth. We give him the credit of producing Lorenzo Langstroth. We consider him the father of modern beekeeping. He developed the movable frame. Okay, and let me show you what I'm talking about here. So we have a wood frame. Now this has drawn out comb already. We have frames that are empty. Let's see here. Well, these have pictures in them. Just imagine. There's a picture one here that's an empty frame. Now, what we do is we put a thin sheet of wax foundation in the frame. Not that they can't do this, but just to keep them doing it straight. So that way we can easily pull each frame out and it's not wavy or interconnected, and we can't move the frames out. So if we start them out with a thin layer, now this is actually, the core of this is plastic and it's been sprayed with beeswax on it. So it's a core of plastic that has been with the cells embossed to the actual way the bees build out comb. Okay, so it gives them a starter pattern, if you will. But they naturally can do this on their own, like I said. And some beekeepers will, if they want a more natural way, if they don't want a whole foundation, or they don't want it plastic, or we're building for cutting out comb for people to eat, then you can put a full sheet. They do have just pure wax, or you can put a strip of wax just at the top in the center, and the bees then will take that and they will draw it down. It gives them a starting pattern of straightness. So that's the way you want it. You don't want it this way. You want it this way. And then the other thing was very important that Langstroth figured out was that there was a certain amount of space that if you kept between frames, that the bees then would not build what we would call cross comb. I don't know if I had that sample. I don't think I brought that one there. But the whole, think of it, then you got two frames, and if you don't have the right spacing, naturally, they would start building combs this way too, and interconnecting these, and you wouldn't be able to pull them out. So, so too little space, then they don't draw the frames out properly. Too much space, then they put extra comb in. So he found out that there was a 3/8 inch, what we now call bee space, and it's kind of like the observation hive back there. We designed that there with 3/8 inch above and beyond where the comb is from the glass. If we made that more than 3/8 inch, they would build cross comb, they would try to build comb on the glass, and you couldn't view them. But because we know that, we're able to build that box where once they draw the comb out to the proper depth, then if we leave them an extra 3/8 space, they will leave it empty for traveling and for working the comb. So that was a major finding, really.